Is it a scream? A gasp? Or the final breath of someone who's just realized they're already dead? Look into her eyes. They're wide with horror, not at what she's seeing, but at what she's become. Blood spurts from her freshly severed neck, mouth frozen mid-scream, writhing snakes where hair should be. And the face staring back at you? It might just be the artist himself. This isn't just a severed head on a shield. This is a confession in paint. Created in 1597, Caravaggio's Medusa is unlike anything else from its time. A visceral, psychological gut punch painted not on canvas, but on a curved wooden shield. Caravaggio didn't just paint Medusa, he became her. And once you understand why, you'll never look at this painting or its creator the same way again. When I stood in front of this painting at the Uffizi Gallery, I was stunned. Pictures don't do it justice. It's magnetic, disturbing, impossible to look away from, and probably my favorite Caravaggio. Look at that face. The rounded cheeks, the full lips, that furrowed brow. Art historians have long noted what seems obvious once you see it. This isn't just any face. It's Caravaggio's own. The guy loved to insert himself into his paintings, like a Renaissance Where's Waldo, but with way more drama. Sometimes he'd be a witness to biblical scenes, other times more blatantly, like in his David with the head of Goliath, where he plays both the hero and the severed head. But painting himself as Medusa? That's next level of self-awareness, or maybe self-sabotage. It's like using your own face for a true crime Netflix show. Except 400 years before true crime existed. Think about what Medusa represents. Her gaze turned men to stone. Caravaggio's paintings have a similar power. They freeze extreme moments of emotion, capturing violence or terror with such intensity that viewers can't look away. With a brush instead of a monstrous stare, he petrified time itself. But here's the spicy backstory. When Caravaggio painted this, he was already building his reputation as Rome's resident and a bad boy. His temper was becoming legendary. His nights were spent in taverns where fists flew as freely as wine. He illegally carried a sword and had a growing collection of arrest warrants. Imagine the most talented guy in your art class who also happens to be the guy who'd smash a beer bottle and threaten someone over a card game. That was Caravaggio. So when he puts his own face on a monster, is he bragging, confessing, warning us? By making himself the Medusa, Caravaggio is basically saying, yeah, I'm the monster people whisper about. But at the same time, he's showing us not a terrifying creature, but a human caught in a moment of shocking realization. Almost like he's foreshadowing his own fate. After all, this is the same man who would later kill someone in a street fight and spend the rest of his life as a fugitive with a price on his head. More on this later. Have you ever caught a glimpse of yourself that stopped you cold? That mirror moment or accidental front-facing camera pic that made you think, who is that? Caravaggio did. And instead of deleting it, he painted it larger than life and gave it to a duke. Let's talk about what's actually happening in this bizarre painting, because Caravaggio's take on the Medusa myth is about as traditional as putting ketchup on sushi. Quick mythological recap. Medusa's story is a classic case of victim-turned-villain. Originally a beautiful woman with enviable hair, she was attacked by Poseidon in Athena's temple. Instead of punishing the god, Athena blamed Medusa for the desecration of her sacred space. The goddess transformed Medusa's lovely locks into writhing snakes and cursed her with a gaze that turned anyone who looked at her to stone. Enter hero-for-hire Perseus, who was basically sent on a suicide mission to kill this monster that became too dangerous. They equipped him with a polished bronze shield, which he cleverly used as a mirror to avoid her deadly gaze. While she was distracted by her own reflection, he lopped off her head in one stroke. In most classical art, you'd see either a hideous Medusa monster or a triumphant Perseus holding up her severed head like a trophy. But Caravaggio! He zooms in on the victim. What he shows us is how Medusa experiences her own death. We are meant to see her exactly as Perseus would have. In his mirrored shield, at the exact moment of decapitation, her head suspended midair, blood still flowing, snakes still writhing. Her expression isn't rage or attack, it's pure shock. The precise moment of realization that it's over. It's not the hero's triumph, but the victim's horror. Caravaggio has flipped the script completely. Instead of showing the terror Medusa causes, he shows the terror she feels. The hunter becomes the hunted. The monster becomes the victim. And because of that flip, the story suddenly becomes deeply, uncomfortably human. Forget everything you thought you knew about Renaissance painting. This isn't a framed canvas hanging flat on a wall. This is art as an object, a functional ceremonial shield. Cardinal Francesco Maria del Monte, Caravaggio's early patron, commissioned this as a gift for the Grand Duke of Tuscany, Ferdinand I de' Medici. In Renaissance court culture, giving decorated shields as gifts was the 16th century equivalent of gifting someone a luxury sports car with custom detailing, a power move disguised as generosity. But a Medusa on a shield isn't just fancy decoration, it's genius-level symbolism. Remember the mirrored shield Perseus used to defeat her? Caravaggio is recreating the very object from the myth, making us, the viewers, into Perseus himself. The convex surface creates an effect that simply has to be seen in person. As you move around it in the gallery, the head seems to follow you, the snakes appear to writhe, the blood looks wet. It's an optical illusion that creates an almost holographic quality, but in 1597 it was pure magic. This means we don't just look at Medusa, we wield the weapon that kills her. We become active participants in the violence. We hold the mirror that shows Medusa her fate. And here's where it gets truly twisted. If that's Caravaggio's own face on Medusa, he's casting himself as both executioner and executed, placing himself on both sides of the blade. It's like he's simultaneously confessing to being capable of violence, while also acknowledging he could be its victim. A chilling premonition of what Caravaggio's later life would be. Born Michelangelo Merisi. In 1571 near Milan, he became known by the name of his hometown, Caravaggio. He arrived in Rome as a young artist and immediately developed two reputations, for extraordinary talent and for extraordinary trouble. Police records, and there were many, tell us Caravaggio was a walking disaster. He threw rocks at his landlady's windows. He brawled in taverns. He destroyed his own paintings when angry. He strutted around Rome with an illegal sword constantly at his hip. Not just any weapon, but a proper rapier that only nobles were allowed to carry. This wasn't your stereotypical moody artist. This was a guy with serious impulse control issues and a talent for making enemies. By 1597, when he painted Medusa, these tendencies were already obvious. But the real drama was still to come. In 1606, Caravaggio would kill a man named Ranuccio Tomassoni in a sword fight, possibly over a tennis match, a gambling debt, or a woman. It earned him a death sentence and forced him to flee Rome, spending his final years as a fugitive. The artist, who painted himself as a severed head, would later have a price on that very head. Maybe it was his moment of clearest self-knowledge, recognizing the destructive force he carried inside. Like Medusa, his gaze transformed what it touched, and like her, he was ultimately undone by his own nature. Let's be real. Renaissance and Baroque art is full of violence. Saints being tortured, biblical punishments, mythological brutality. You couldn't walk through a church or palace without seeing someone getting stabbed, beheaded, or flayed alive. So what makes Caravaggio's Medusa hit differently? Why does it stick with you when so many other violent images from the era just blend together? It's not about the blood. By Baroque standards, the three jets spurting from Medusa's neck are practically restrained. It's about perspective and proximity. Most violent art from this period positions you as a distant witness, watching from a safe remove as saints suffer nobly or villains get their just punishment. There's emotional bubble wrap between you and the scene. But Medusa makes you part of the violence. Her eyes lock with yours. There's no comfortable distance, no narrative buffer. You're not watching a mythological event. You're caught in a direct confrontation with the moment of death itself. And unlike most art of its time, Medusa's death isn't serene or heroic or deserved. It's shocking, unexpected, unfair. This approach to violence, immediate, confrontational, psychologically complex, became Caravaggio's signature. From the beheading of St. John the Baptist to Judith beheading Holofernes, he stripped away the glorification of violence to show its raw, uncomfortable reality. Which hits you harder? A superhero movie battle with perfect lighting and bloodless combat, or that one scene in a gritty war film that shows you exactly what a bullet really does to a human body? Caravaggio chose truth over beauty every time, and that's what still grabs us by the throat centuries later. How does Caravaggio make this painting so viscerally powerful? It's all in his revolutionary technique. First, there's his dramatic use of light and shadow, chiaroscuro, which literally means light dark in Italian. Medusa's face emerges from deep shadows, lit with an almost theatrical spotlight that makes her pale skin glow against the dark background. But it's more than just lighting tricks. Look how he captures frozen motion. The blood doesn't just drip, it spurts outward in 3 distinct jets. The snakes don't just sit on her head, they twist and writhe in different directions, some lunging forward, others coiling back in shock. Then there's the facial expression, shockingly realistic for its time. This isn't an idealized face. It's contorted in genuine horror. Mouth open mid-breath, eyes widen in sudden realization. Even his color choices punch you in the gut. The sickly green background isn't accidental. It enhances the gory realism of the red blood and the deathly pallor of Medusa's skin. And remember, he painted this on a curved surface. Imagine trying to create a realistic portrait on the outside of a serving bowl. Caravaggio had to calculate how the shield's curve would distort his image and adjust accordingly. The result is a painting that physically projects toward the viewer, breaking the boundary between art and reality. All these elements create what I call the eternal moment, a slice of time so perfectly captured that it feels perpetually present. We don't just see Medusa's death, we witness it happening again and again every time we look at the painting. Despite being over 400 years old, Caravaggio's Medusa refuses to stay politely confined to art history books. It lives on, not just in museums, but in our collective visual vocabulary. Most famously, the fashion house Versace adopted Medusa as its logo in the late 1970s. Founder Gianni Versace, a native of southern Italy where Greek mythology was practically local history, chose Medusa as a symbol of beauty that stops people in their tracks, drawing on Caravaggio's human, emotional interpretation rather than more monstrous versions. But the influence reaches far beyond fashion. Caravaggio's Medusa has become a cultural touchstone in ways few Renaissance images have managed. Film directors like Dario Argento directly referenced it in horror classics like Suspiria. Heavy metal bands have emblazoned it across album covers. Photographers like Cindy Sherman have reinterpreted it in self-portraits. Even video games like Assassin's Creed have paid homage to it. The image has a way of appearing whenever art wants to confront us with our own mortality or the thin line between beauty and horror. What makes this specific Medusa connect so powerfully across centuries? Maybe it's because that expression of shock, horror, and vulnerability is so universally recognizable. We all know what it feels like to be exposed, caught off guard, seen at our worst moment. If Caravaggio were alive today, he'd probably be that brutally honest person on your social feed, the one who posts the unflattering, unfiltered emotional moments everyone else carefully crops out. Or maybe he'd be that controversial artist always in trouble, live streaming his bar fights and court appearances between creating masterpieces. Would you have the guts to post your own Medusa moment? That unfiltered reaction to your most vulnerable state? Caravaggio chose honesty over vanity, and centuries later here I am talking about it. What makes Caravaggio's Medusa so uniquely powerful? It's the layers of paradox, the monster who is also a victim, the moment between life and death, the artist who sees himself in the creature others fear. Caravaggio would follow this painting with works of increasing psychological complexity and darkness. His David would hold his own self-portrait as the severed head of Goliath. His saints would bear the dirt-streaked feet and weathered faces of Rome's common people. His Christ would die not with serene acceptance, but with painful, all-too-human anguish. But it all begins here, with this severed head on a shield, a face caught in the eternal moment of recognition, asking, what do we become when forced to confront our own reflection? What parts of ourselves do we need to cut away to survive? Which side of Caravaggio's Medusa haunts you more? The mythological horror of a decapitated Gorgon, or the very human artist who dared to put his own face on the monster, admitting the darkness he carried inside? Let me know in the comments, and subscribe to Galleria for more journeys into the art that doesn't just hang on walls, but lives inside us all.